Well, as you know, that it's common practice that at around this time during this program on a Friday, we take a look at what has been happening since Monday until now. And this week has been dominated by news from the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos in Switzerland. And of course, the JSE ended the year at a low base. So how are the markets faring for the week? Load shedding cost South African economy at least about 59 billion rand in 2019, according to the CSIR report. And of course, business rescue practitioners have been called to appear before Parliament over South African Airways, while job cuts will depress South Africa's limping economy even more since the beginning of the year. So let's get some analysis. We have Andrew Duvenhage, who is Managing Director of NFB. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Right, starting with the World Economic Forum, have you been impressed by this year's gathering in terms of the rhetoric that has been coming out of the business leaders, governments, and other stakeholders who are participating there, looking at the direction in which the world economy should take?
Yeah, it's always interesting to see what comes out of Davos, and I suppose some people do question as to whether it actually results in any action. So when you talk about like climate change as a concept over there, is what is the actual implication being? But in saying that, is sometimes it is quite insightful as to trends which are coming towards financial markets and issues that we'll be focused on. So it's always interesting to look across and see what's going on and what's coming out from world leaders there.
So not so many promises can be made in terms of tangible deals that can be signed. It's just a platform to network and say, this is what we can do, who are you, I'm so and so, and here's my business card and so forth.
Yes.
But do you see this, as it happens annually, really producing results in terms of what has happened before, what has happened in the interim, and what may happen in the future?
Well, it's a question, and I mean, you just had a clip from Tito Mboweni a little bit earlier talking about interest in South Africa from members and from networking. But the issue is, does it translate into action? And I suppose there are accusations that it's a talk shop as opposed to anything else. But in saying that, is maybe it's the behind the scenes type of stuff that then eventually manifests in action. And let's hope from a South African perspective that that's the case, and the appetite that Tito Mboweni speaks to regarding South Africa as a destination for investment, that actually lands. So we've had a lot of these investment promises that are spoken about, an appetite for South Africa, but we've yet to see that translate into GDP, into economic activity, into job creation. And I suppose we all need to hope, given where South Africa is, that it isn't just talk and that there's actually substance to what the minister says that he's seeing there.
When we have Minister Naledi Pandor talking about tourism, isn't it something that is, bottom of the list of priorities when you are at the World Economic Forum? I mean, excuse the pun, but one would understand that when you are there, you're talking about investment in various sectors of the economy, including tourism itself. But given that we're having so many job cuts in South Africa, the kind of new investment that's needed in this country is creating new jobs, but talking also about getting people out of the unemployment line back into the mainstream job market.
But in fact, she's right on the money, is for South Africa, tourism has to be one of the biggest opportunities for sustainable employment going forward. You're not reliant on finite resources like fossil fuels. It's sustainable. It certainly has appetite from international travelers. South Africa's a cheap destination. It's an interesting destination, and unlike Europe, it's not a question of people coming for the weekend. It's far away, so they're coming for a couple of weeks. And I think that she's 100% on the money, as that represents something that's somewhat untapped and something that could represent significant opportunity as a sustainable long-term source of job creation. And I mean, there are plenty of studies that show that for every tourist that comes across here, jobs are created. So I would actually concur with her fully.
Okay, so what about the hardball that they can get? You're calling us to South Africa, but you've got a load shedding problem. Yeah.
It's a massive issue. It really is the Achilles heel of South Africa. And so we are desperately keen to see the new CEO of Eskom and the Minister of Public Enterprises start seeing results out of what's going on in Eskom. The load shedding that we saw over the weekend over the December period, unfortunately, was not good. As you mentioned earlier in your introduction, there's going to be a significant cost from load shedding, and that cost comes in direct and indirect ways. I mean, we saw Amplats, I think it was yesterday, come out with a statement that they believe that they've lost about 750 million rand worth of production over this period as a result of the lights going out. So it affects everything, tourism and everything else, and we're desperately keen to see progress and decisive intervention. Tito Mboweni speaks about power supply and alternatives. Is we just wish that they would be decisive in allowing different industries to produce their own power and decrease their dependence on something which is clearly under strain.
You're parting short. Do we need a new bank in South Africa? Goldman Sachs making an announcement that they will be coming to South Africa to explore the financial capital market?
I think the first thing to be clear is that Goldman Sachs is not coming in the sense of a retail bank, so it's certainly not going to come and create jobs, in my opinion. What we have seen is we've seen an exodus of a number of the big sort of brokerages, Macquarie, Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank, all downscaling their operations in Africa and South Africa specifically. So it's nice to see someone bucking the trend. My view would be probably that they are positioning themselves for a lot of the work that would come with the restructuring of the South African economy and the need to access capital markets. So it's probably quite clever from their perspective. It is good to see that there are still people and material institutions with appetite for our market. So it would probably be a good thing, but I don't think it's done for altruistic or for any reason outside of they think that there's an opportunity to make money. But as I say, I think it's good that at least that interest exists.
Right. Well, so much to talk about, but anyway, let's leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Andrew Duvenhage is the Managing Director of NFB, giving us details on the week that was.